Welcome everyone to episode 4 of Stable Stories, a new series that the Eco Foundation is putting on, highlighting founders and builders working at the frontier of the stablecoin space. For this episode, we have our friends at M0 joining us, Luca, the CEO, Luca Prosperi, and Greg Di Prisco, the co-founder. They're going to be joining our Eco Inc. CEO, Ryne Saxe, to spend the next half hour going into their stories, talking about the stablecoin space, getting to know each other a little bit better. Although for the people listening now and that will be listening later that have long-term knowledge of the Eco protocol, a lot of you will recognize Luca's avatar, maybe not right now because it's an add-on avatar, but Luca is one of our former from previous years, so we have a great relationship already set up. So welcome. Thank you both for taking the time to join us for Stable Stories. Ryne, thanks for jumping in too. I know you've got a very busy schedule with protocol coming up. So it's very great. It's great to have you here. Just want to kick things off with the structure of these episodes. We try and keep them to a relatively tight 30 minutes. The first 10 or 15 minutes is all about getting to know our guests and their experiences with stablecoins generally from a sort of high level view. And then, for the rest of the time, we dive a little bit deeper into the protocols and the projects that they're working on, try and get some unique perspectives on the stablecoin space generally from people who are right there in the trenches building. And then we leave the last couple of minutes to any questions or some free-form conversation. So Ryne, how are you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm happy to guest host this morning.
Yeah.
I saw we had M0 and I had to sort of like elbow my way into this one. So thanks for looping me.
Very, very happy to have you here. I'm sure you'll do a much better job than I would be capable of. So I'm more than happy to hand the reins over for that. If you want to kick things off, by all means. And if you need anything, I'm happy to jump in.
Awesome. I'll do it. I'll pick it up here. Luca, Greg, thanks again for joining. For those listening, I think I would safely say that Luca is one of my closest confidants in crypto generally, and especially when it comes to remunerating coins and nerding out about money. So that's why I want to be here and help drive the discussion. Foundation usually leads this, but I wanted to take the helm this morning. So happy to have you guys here for a half hour. Let's talk stablecoins. Let's start by framing M0 for those listening now or later, and sort of. Could you tell us what the platform is and how it works at a high level, and then we'll zero in from there and talk a little bit more about stables generally.
Yeah, I could probably take that. So M0 at its core is a decentralized protocol. But what that decentralized protocol does is connect the two main actors in any stablecoin relationship, which are the issuers that sit upstream and the distributors that sit downstream. If you think of the way that most stablecoin operators are operating today, they're vertically integrated. Circle and Tether control everything from reserving down to compliance, down to distribution. And what that resulted in is that a lot of businesses do not get the full value or control they need out of the stablecoin solution that they choose. They outsource all of it to Circle or Tether, and they really just get to pick between two firms. So we thought we would change it up a bit by trying to modularize the stack. But in doing so, you find that you still need a coordination layer in the center. Someone that will maintain standards on the issuers and somebody who will coordinate liquidity and on and off ramps for the distributors. So that's what the M0 protocol effectively does. It acts as that coordination layer. And from the perspective of our users, who are these issuers and are these distributors, it abstracts away complexity. So when I say distributor, we call them extenders in our lexicon. What this means is you are an application that wants to launch your own stablecoin, or even just wants to have a stablecoin in your flows. We will let you do that very easily, 100% on chain. You won't have to hire any lawyers. You won't have to fill out any paperwork. You click a few buttons and you have a stablecoin. From there, you'll control how the yield gets distributed. You'll control compliance functions, and you can outsource all of this too. It's totally modular. But the point is we can abstract away all of the legal complexity of being an issuer. Now, upstream on the other side of the ball, we have those businesses that are legal issuers. They are regulated. They have licenses. They're reserving appropriately in their jurisdiction. But they all produce an asset called M. And M is our wholesale stablecoin. So we believe that, and then I'll be quiet for a minute. We believe that stablecoins are going to reflect what we see in basically every other business, where there's a manufacturer, that's the issuers in our model. There's a wholesaler, and that's the M0 protocol. And then there's a retail distributor, and those are the applications that we call extenders in our model. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think it's sort of deceptively simple at the end of the day, right? But it's incredibly powerful. I think that, just for a moment of storytelling, in that description, you sort of covered some of the problem statements, right? And some of the market opportunity. But kind of more anecdotally, can you both talk a little bit about, why build it, right? The original motivations. I think it has a great deal to do with modularizing the stablecoin stack, competing against the incumbents in the market, and clearly offering issuers and end users better advantages with more optionality from the stables than they might hold. But I'd like you to take us back to kind of the founding story and what led to the initial commitment, and besides kind of the market opportunity for stablecoins writ large, the motivating factors for building it like you have.
Yeah, I can take this. You can hear me, right? Ryne?
Yep.
Awesome.
Hear you well.
Because I think this is very dear to us, to me, and to Greg as well. And I'll try not to be excessively abstract. But the reason why I think Greg and myself got in crypto through Maker was that for the first time, there was a project that consciously or unconsciously was trying to reinvent how money is created. And we are used to deal with money through our banks, but we don't know, we forget sometimes that banks or bank accounts are some sort of abstraction layer, and behind there is a very, very convoluted set of actors and checks and balances. And for the first time, Maker was trying to reinvent this on digital native asset, which was more doable at the time. And I think we had certain concerns about the Maker construct, but when Greg and myself designed M0, we designed this inheriting, and a lot of monetary nerds, they started in Maker. We decided inheriting some of the core principles that we learned as part of that exercise. Fungibility of money, permissionlessness, composability, without necessarily the gamification of governance and stuff like that. And this is still very dear to us. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this is not now where this crypto is going. I think you see now a lot of fintech builders, they're looking at Tether and say, wait a second, we can actually capture so much money becoming massive gatekeepers of this crypto ecosystem. We want to build proprietary rails and squeeze out all the users in the same way banks used to do to current account holders. And we reject this. We don't think that having vertically separated issuers, Tether, Circle, and many other copycats, and Stripe is running their own one, and JP Morgan wants to do their own one. This is just perpetuating gatekeeping capitalism that crypto wanted to disrupt. And we are still for that, doing that, because we think it's actually doable. And it's funny that this new generation of crypto people, they think, okay, crypto rails are payment rails that we can substitute to Visa and actually pump our centralized businesses. I actually wrote a lot about this. I recently wrote something about network topology of money networks, and I think this is actually very bad for the system. So I think, but what we decided, the way we designed M0 was to actually allow total composability in how you actually can create and distribute money in a more transparent, distributed way, and also more tech native, so that you don't need to bend the knee or actually beg Circle to give you the kickbacks. You just need to write code and embed digital money in your stack. And the last thing is a call to action to people that are listening to us is, I believe this is the future. I believe that the next generation of great businesses will be built on crypto rails from the ground up, and it will not be JP Morgan, V3, or not even Circle for what matters. I think this is what is moving us.
Love it. Couldn't agree more strongly, which I think you already knew, but on the record for the rest of you here. So I think that, M0 places you kind of among the foremost experts in the market at just launching a stablecoin, and the challenge of doing so. And I'd like to ask a little bit more about that, actually, generally. In your opinion, what are the couple most challenging things to bring a new stablecoin to market today? And where does M0 sit in the solution stack for helping that on the issuer side specifically?
I think I could take that. So, I mean, bringing a stablecoin to market from the distributor's perspective is very hard. You have to have an issuance, jurisdiction, licenses, reserving, regulators. Like it's a tremendous amount of overhead. But I think, funny enough, the hardest part is getting shared liquidity or any kind of liquidity. Mm-hmm. So if you're launching a new stablecoin, even if you're just going to use it in your application, getting the connectivity to all of the different infrastructure providers is at least a 2-year job. I think. I mean, it took us 2 years to get it. So what I see when people launch a stablecoin, they really don't want to take on all that overhead. And that's kind of what we give them is we say, use our general infrastructure and just put your brand on it and you control the features that matter to you. It's almost like using the cloud instead of having to run your own server farm. I don't know, Luca, do you have a contrast there? Or?
Yeah, no, I obviously agree, but I think I wanted to put another layer on top of it because M0 is not really building a white labeled stable that, like Paxos or other smaller incumbents that small players are trying to do, right? I think it's like, we're not saying, we build a stablecoin and just brand it and do it yourself. I think that another intuition, and this connects with what Greg has said at the beginning, where M0 is this kind of protocol sitting in the middle, is that we realize that the upstream of money and the downstream of money are very different. What is the upstream of money? The upstream of money is, I don't know, Fidelity saying, I want to get into this business because I know how to manage assets and I want to actually stablecoin because it's very profitable. But Fidelity is not going to build Hyperliquid. And the downstream of money are like the Hyperliquids, the Noble, the Cast, the Usuals, the many other partners that we've been talking to, like our builders. And the builders, they don't care about reserving. They don't care about solvency, licensing. Someone else can do it, but they just care about embedding, controlling the dollars that lubricate their pipes, and having a fair profits based on the floats that they're actually intermediate. And I think what this was like the intuition, like, we want to allow the builders, the developers to build their digital dollar stack only with code being completely abstracted away from the collateral side. And on the other side, we want to give to the collateral managers like actually a common marketplace, let's so to say, where they can actually plug their reserve management and their distribution abilities. And I think these two sides of the business are very, very different. And then we see it's funny, like, Circle is they always talk about USDC being used in new bank or being used for payments, etc. But the reality is that the absolutely dominant market for Circle is DeFi. They were very DeFi friendly, and that's why people were built on it. But now DeFi feels left behind. It's like, why do we need to pay the Circle tax? And these guys aren't even picking up the phone because they want to go. They are IPOing and they want to advertise their new bank partnerships, for example. Mm-hmm. And these guys are the guys who come to talk to us, because they don't want to deal with this licensing. They don't want to deal with the complexity. They just want to use, but they want to control their destiny, and they can do it with us.
Yeah, I think you guys have some really unique perspective that I think a lot of people don't even think about, and just in terms of how hard it is to launch a stablecoin in the right way before you even get into the market, right? And before you choose your angle and you sort of your vector to try to compete and accrue liquidity and accrue volume. And I think one of your innovations that is, maybe a little bit nerd interesting to me, given my legal background, is the legal infrastructure you've also established. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's just an element of launching a stablecoin in sort of a legitimate and right way that most people don't think about, right? Most people in crypto are probably assuming that, you code up a stablecoin and you YOLO it somewhere in DeFi and, you hope people ultimately hold it. But I think if you're trying to launch it at scale and with real purpose, there's a ton of pre-work that goes into it that most people never see. And so I'd love to hear you speak to that.
Yeah, and I think there are two aspects. I'll talk about number one, and then I think Greg can probably chip in for number two. I think that launching a stablecoin has a structuring element and legal, which is very, very important, as you mentioned. And then at the second half, which is even more important, which is guaranteeing interoperability and liquidity. Because if you're launching a well-designed stablecoin, you need to create the ecosystem and the liquidity around it, and this is extremely painful. And we wanted to solve both. On the liquidity and interoperability is an on-chain engineering problem that Greg is very so we can talk about it more if we have time. On the structuring side, we did it as well. So we actually created a system that can allow, so it has a set of standards, technological and legal, so that you can actually bring into the world the M-powered stablecoins by complying each issuer with their own local jurisdiction, as long as they comply with the holistic M0 framework. So funny enough, the first issuer on the network is an offshore issuer in the BVI. We didn't have issuers in Europe or in the US because the legal requirements in Europe and the US are bad. So they would have actually tainted the quality of the stables. Now, MiCA is still like this because they have a prescriptive and protectionist regulation to protect banks. The US is not like this anymore, and Genius actually would completely transform the way we do stablecoin issuance. How? I think our vision is you want to issue a stablecoin, you need to store high quality assets, the risk-free proxy, as close as possible to risk-free, so no bank deposits, in a bankruptcy remote vehicle that is super senior in bankruptcy, and you need to provide a set of validators to actually validate those reserves every day. If you can do it, you can actually become an approved minter on the network. Currently in the US, you will be able to do it. That's why we partner with Braille to actually have the first issuers within the US market. Because under Genius, you can actually have stablecoins. You would be able to have in the future, if it gets approved, stablecoins that are entirely backed by risk-free assets, secured, super senior versus the bankruptcy of any issuer. So you don't have SVB situations anymore, bypassing banks. And actually, interestingly enough, with the collaterals that might be in the future tokenized, so that stablecoin issuance platforms become really networks that can absorb different assets that exist in the off-chain and on-chain world, and then actually package them in a stablecoin compliant way, as long as those assets are as close as possible to risk-free. So stablecoins are not actually structured products masked as payment products, like in the case of early day Athena, but are actually proper risk-free, almost payment tokens. And that was our belief at the very beginning. We wanted to on quality and technology, not on yield. And this is certain jurisdictions. So I think if you are an issuer in the jurisdictions where we think there is compliance, you can just ask to the Zero Foundation to help you drafting the contracts and actually deploying the smart contracts for you, and join a network that is going to become more and more complex on the other side of what is required to bootstrap a digital money, which is interoperability and liquidity, which is something that people always ignore, but it's the most difficult thing. The reason why Tether is because it's accepted everywhere, not because of the quality of the reserves. Nobody knows what's in the reserves. So I think that it's a good lesson. So that's what we're trying to optimize for both.
Greg, anything to add on the liquidity side, as Luca alluded to earlier?
Yeah, this has been one of the main challenges we've been grappling with. It's how do we get institutional liquidity at institutional capital rates to come and provide stablecoin liquidity? Because if you look today, like the reason Circle and Tether are juggernauts is because they've got the OTC desk and the exchanges on their side. But that's their business. It's going to be very difficult to take that from them. In our opinion, the more expeditious route is to just kind of circumvent those players and get liquidity directly to the user how they want. And for us, this means that we want everything to be as on-chain as possible. So one of the places that we've been innovating is how can we bring institutional capital into DeFi? Now, you've seen this somewhat with Coinbase already. You have them doing deals with Morpho and UniV4. We're doing right now some UniV4 hooks that have special compliance functions and also intelligent routing, so that our different issuers and our liquidity providers and our extenders can all meet in this one place, where they might have to do some off-chain work to get to that point, but once they're there, everything can be automated on-chain.
That's super interesting. Are you yet in a position where you can talk a little bit more about kind of the routing component of that for the more technical listeners, or maybe not?
Yeah, it's actually not that complicated. It's just in the event we have multiple extensions, which are all, from our perspective, fungible because they're all backed by M, but maybe they have different rule sets about who can wrap and unwrap. Or they have different liquidity pools. For instance, if a minter has a liquidity pool for their own asset versus if they're using WrapDAM, which is kind of like our DeFi asset, you can have an intelligent routing contract that just pre-checks that the address almost simulates a transaction to ensure that it's getting the best fill. It's under the hood, it's actually not very complex at all. It's executing some basic checks to make sure the address is eligible for the different pools. But if it is eligible for the different pools, it'll just route to the one that gives the best price.
Got it. And I think something that's important for people to realize about M0 is effectively M would it be fair to, I mean, you've called it kind of like the wholesale stablecoin in the system. Would it also be fair to just kind of think of it as a numeraire that unifies the liquidity of all stablecoins issued on top?
Yes, totally. I mean, that's really what we're here for. We're trying to provide common infrastructure and liquidity so that when you launch a stablecoin, it's a seamless process as if you had launched with or Tether, but you're totally in control.
Totally. And I think it's really important to hear that and appreciate it, because, you know, we have all these fragmentation problems in crypto, and like, I think stablecoin sort of issuance fragmentation is quickly going to become another one. One of the innovations here is the shared liquidity layer that you guys have, keeps it all tied together, right? Such that if I'm using a sort of, I don't know how I would call it, what you guys would say, let's just call it like an N-denominated stable. From many of your distributors, I have access to the full system liquidity, right? And that is going to be, I think, increasingly important. That is a problem statement that we at Eco are coming at from a different angle. Among some of the stablecoins in the marketplace that don't otherwise talk to each other, or don't have sort of deep routes across chain ecosystems. But I think it's something that a lot of people need to appreciate about sort of the current mess in the market and where things are headed. The fragmentation among stablecoins being launched or being issued is worse before it gets better. In sort of the M0 platform design kind of just inherently anticipates that problem and would be a solution to it. And so I think that's really important for people here to understand. Are there other problem statements in the current stablecoin market that you think are under-discussed, underdeveloped, underappreciated?
I can, I will give you my high-level opinion. First of all, I think that you guys, Ryan, you're working a lot on the liquidity interoperability side as well, and you know that it's difficult to provide omni liquidity if the standards are not homogeneous, right? Otherwise, there's always like the risk that the market is going to be smart and is going to arb the quality and the different, like of these different flavors of money on chain, which is, that's also why we're trying to enforce common standards so that the tokens are really, they smell the same, they look the same. I think that on what to answer to your question, in my opinion, is I think people are obsessing currently on the brand of these digital versions of money, and then you want to have the Circle dollar, the Tether dollar, the Paxos dollar, PayPal dollar. And I think, in my opinion, this is really a temporary phenomenon. I think that in the very, very, very soon, users will go back. Most of the users, the real mass adoption will come through the application layer. These guys, the users will just use dollars. They will see a dollar balance on their apps, and the application layer will actually route through the systems provided, and they will just choose the most optimal system that gives them more control, more liquidity, more integrations, and also help them design cooler financial products. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create an infrastructure that is as modular as possible, and where you can add additional features for the fintech businesses of the future. Like, everybody's obsessing, is super focused on the on and off ramp piece. Stablecoin needs to move very quickly between fiat and stables, so I can use a stable to move from Nigeria to Brazil and then go back to fiat. I think this is very temporary. I think that most of the fun infrastructure will happen on chain. And I know, like, we are on-chain crypto native people, but most of the people that are coming into crypto and stablecoins now, they're not. So they're focused on this friction between fiat and on-chain, where I think most of the action and most of the infrastructure would be built on-chain. And that's the reason why we came here in the first place, like a few years back, right? So that's what we're trying to work on. We want to be the most advanced on-chain stablecoin infrastructure company there is. We will partner with the bridges of this world to go back into fiat rails where it's required, but I think most of the action will remain on-chain in the foreseeable future. And that's what I think a lot of companies should focus on as well, which what you guys are focusing on as well, for example.
Honestly, I think that's a great final word. We're at time, and I think it's a really good insight to end on. So really, really appreciate you guys joining and giving us a half hour of your time to help educate more people about stablecoins. You have such unique expertise in the marketplace, one I respect so much, one I trust that we'll work more closely with as we scale ourselves. And just personally, good to talk to you about this morning. Dave, can I kick it back to you to wrap up however you see fit?
I think you did a fantastic job. Thank you, Luca and Greg, once again for joining this week's Stable Spaces. We'll have another one coming up next week. Ryan, thank you very much for co-hosting. That was awesome. I very much enjoyed it. A couple projects, both working on demystifying the fragmented landscape of stablecoins. It's a great chat. Enjoy the rest of the week, everyone. We'll call it here and see you soon. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
Sure thing.
Thank you, guys.